It's that time of week. Time to see who's in and who's out for the Knights and the Raiders.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. Locked On UCF is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 podcast network. Turn us up, turn us on. We're here to talk about injury reports. The Big 12 releases their injury report at 10 p.m. Eastern. And so at 10:30 every Wednesday, we are here to talk about it. James, on today's show, we're going to get an update on that injury report, then talk about a name on there I think is a huge loss for UCF headed into this one. And then based on that, are we rethinking UCF's chances in this one, good or bad? We'll talk about that at the end of the show. Let's start at the top here. As always, we're coming in heavy with graphics, guys. Let's start with Texas Tech. We'll start with Texas Tech today. Out on the injury report for Texas Tech, Skylar Gill-Howard, the D lineman. TJ West, wide receiver, is out. Wide receiver Leighton Stone is out. Wide receiver Roy Alexander is out. And O-lineman Hunter Zambrano out. Questionable is a guy we know well, Lee Hunter, the lineman. And linebacker Jacob Rodriguez is also questionable here for Texas Tech. Moving along here for the Red Raiders, also questionable is D lineman Carlos Allen and probable Will James and Stacy Sneed. Let's move on to UCF. Out for the Knights, camp answer, no surprise, Caden Peating, Stacy Gage, all they've been out for a while. And we know the deal on them. Stacy had surgery, Caden and Cam been out for a little bit. Carter Miller out for the Knights. Keegan Smith also out. Doubtful is defensive back Braden Marshall and linebacker TJ Bullard. Moving on to questionable, Nigel Kelly, Miles Montgomery, Jaden McDonald, Malachi Lawrence. Christ, James. Probable, Thomas Wadsworth and Mason Denneberg. I want to stay here on questionable. This is a significant questionable list. And I got to think that these guys are going to try to give it a go if they can. But what do you think about Nigel Kelly, Miles Montgomery, Jaden McDonald, and Malachi Lawrence all being questionable for this one?
Yeah, I think this is just a brutal midweek blow. I mean, like you were expecting it to be bad, and it was somehow worse than what you were thinking. You were thinking you maybe were going to see, 2 or 3 of the guys that you saw go down, and the other guys might have, had minor injuries and they pop back up and they're springing ready to go on Tuesday or Wednesday practice. And you look at this list and you see every guy that went down on Saturday or Friday and more. You see Keegan Smith and Carter Miller, who's your center and your backup center. So absolutely brutal for the Knights there on the out and the questionable list. It does make me a little hopeful that these guys are questionable rather than out. Somebody that you do see come off that list, Marcus Burke, no longer on the injury report. That is good news, probably the only good news. For some people, Taven Jackson not being on this report could be another piece of good news, or for some people, you might consider that bad news because that, that makes things once again a competition. But, I think this is a huge midweek blow. Obviously some really big names on the Texas Tech side of things with Lee Hunter and Jacob Rodriguez and Baron Morton. The only loss that Texas Tech has this season is when Baron Morton was not playing, when they had to have Will Hammond in against ASU. I do consider that kind of a one-off. It was a one-off. They are 9-1. This game is going to be difficult. A lot of names on here who, I think you expected to see, but there was some part in every single person just like crossing their fingers, praying that they wouldn't see them.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I mean, that's your running back one, both of your starting edges, a 2-deep linebacker who's been making plays for you all year in Jaden McDonald. And then that's just the questionable list, Mike. I mean, on the out list, you've got, a reliable rookie tight end who's been on that list for a while. You've got your starting center, your backup center, doubtful. You've got your starter at nickel, who last week, guys, the absence of Braden Marshall was noticed as soon as he came out. They threw for a 60-yard touchdown right on Jair Brown, who also had a defensive holding on the play and still got burnt for a 60-yard touchdown. So, gosh, I mean, it's going to be really difficult to go in there without 4 starting defensive players and feel at all like the unit that you're most comfortable with is going to get it done, Mike.
James, I was having a good week. And then this injury report came out, and it really just killed my vibe. That questionable list, though, is absolutely brutal if we're not on the right side of that. And these guys, again, questionable, could go either way. But again, I want to pull this back up here. If you're just joining live, Nigel Kelly, Miles Montgomery, Jaden McDonald, and Malachi Lawrence, all questionable. 3 playmakers on defense and your star running back, all questionable for this one. So hopefully we get some good news on game day and these guys can go and stay healthy here. I don't want anybody out there risking their health, but earlier this week, we talked about the spread on this one, and it was massive. It was an absolutely massive spread on this one, James, and looking pretty accurate now, brother. with how many people are out. But
I told people to take Texas Tech on the points.
Oh, you did.
I think I was right.
Hey, I was wrong. Again, this was pre-injury report. If I had seen this injury report, I would have been right there with you. But there's a name on there that stands out that I want to talk about here and how that will affect this one. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Supply House, guys. Supply House is your place if you want to get repairs going, to get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's Supply House, real people, real service. Carter Miller is out for this one. Unfortunately,
that's a brutal blow, Mike.
Yeah, unfortunately, they can't pull an okie doke. Yeah, they can't pull an okie doke on this one. He is the starting center. He is the second quarterback on the field, is the center, and losing him makes me want to take Texas Tech and the points and Texas Tech again. Talk to me about Carter Miller, man, and how this all but maybe guarantees a UCF loss.
Yeah, I mean, Carter Miller being out, I think the thing that also just pushes this over the edge is a guy that's taken a lot of the center 2 snaps. It was Keegan Smith. So you're not even really feeling all that comfortable at the center position at all. I don't know who's been taking snaps at center. I'd be really interested to see, and I'll try and reach out to some people and see who is taking snaps at center. But yeah, that's the guy that was, at least in some of spring and in some of majority of fall camp, was taking those center 2 snaps. Definitely really tough to see your starter and your backup go out there. That's happened at a couple positions now. And the center's basically he's the guy that starts everything, and we've had issues with false starts. We've had issues with illegal shifts or everyone but the center false starts. And, those kinds of issues only get worse when you put a guy out there that hasn't had any first team reps. Not only dealing with that, but say you throw in a rookie quarterback with your basically rookie center. What do you get there, Mike? I mean, that just spells disaster to me, does it not?
It does spell disaster, right? Like, I mean, look, at the end, center is not a place where you want to be inexperienced. There's a lot of places along that offensive line where you can kind of make up for things. Center is really, really, really hard. Look, if they knew he was going to be out early in the week, then maybe they were able to get some extra prep time in with him. But ultimately, I am sad for this O-line. This O-line has struggled all year, and they've had a rough go of it. They lost their position coach tragically, and they have been under fire all year. And at the end, again, nobody had high hopes for this game, but certainly you wanted to see them compete. Jane, is there a chance maybe though this kid steps in and plays just surprisingly well in this one?
There's always a chance, there's always a chance that a kid that you had buried on your depth chart actually comes in and he plays phenomenally. I think the chances of that are a lot higher though at skill positions, positions where it's kind of a lot of the time drawn up for you. And these are the things that you need to do. And a lot of the time skill positions are a little bit more independent work. Offensive line is a unit. The wide receiver, like no one says, oh, the wide receiver unit. No, they talk about the wide receiver room, and each room has, each house has like an individual room in that house. And that is the wide receivers. The wide receivers has their own individual room. When you're talking about the offensive line, you say offensive line as in they are one unit. And with that group being one unit, they need to have practiced together. They need to know what everyone eats. They need to know where everyone sleeps. They need to know their schooling schedules. Like they need to know everything about each other so that they can be like this on the offensive line and not let anyone through and move together as a unit. And when you have guys come out like Keegan Smith, like Carter Miller, that changes. And trying to throw, two Legos onto a sculpture where those two Legos don't necessarily fit, it's not going to, bode well for your team. I think it's going to be an interesting time. I think you're going to see probably, and this only pushes this further, Mike, I think you probably see Davi in this game because I think you probably expect a lot of pass rush to get through because of your offensive line. You need somebody with the ability to do it on the ground in the backfield. And I think you probably see Davi because of that.
That's a great point, right? Like, again, if you're having offensive line issues similar to how they went to Fancher as a guy who can move around back there and kind of escape pressure, do you go to someone with a little bit more elusiveness from the pocket to help neutralize that? What really is going to be kind of a disadvantage there on the offensive line. Again, nothing bummed me out more than seeing Carter Miller on this. Like I'm telling you, it's been such a rough go in year one. You've got bowl game aspirations, but you've got to pull off a massive upset here at the end. Texas Tech not looking like the one. BYU maybe a little bit more realistic, but certainly they should be able to get Oklahoma State. It's just, again, I didn't have any delusions that UCF was going to win this game. And, we've been pretty positive about UCF all season. However, we got to live in reality in this one. This is a really huge hit for the Knights, and I'm not sure I see a route to overcoming and this is just one that we're talking about. Again, if you're just joining us, I can't stress enough, out, right? Like there's some names that are not a surprise, but you got Keegan Smith and Carter Miller out, doubtful Braden Marshall and TJ Bullard, and then questionable. Can you imagine if everybody who is out and doubtful and questionable sits this one out? UCF might lose this by 50.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I actually think that there is a better chance of that happening than you even seeing two of those guys on the questionable list play that game.
Wow.
And I think the reason is, and correct me if I'm wrong. I do think that when football teams get to this point in the season, some would say they become desperate, right? You're 5-4. You need to win 2 of your last 3 to get a bowl. But at this point in the season, you're still battling at quarterback. You're still battling at some other positions. You've been switching out a lot at O-line. Defense has played really, really well, but now everyone's hurt. Is this a game where you just sit your guys and make them healthy for BYU? I mean, is that crazy to say? Or against Oklahoma State? I mean, I don't necessarily think that's like out of the picture. If you want to look at big picture as a football team, your best thing that you can do is go out there, put up an absolute stinker, and go 4-6 going into your last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that if health is borderline, also you got to do what's in the best interest of these kids, right?
Yeah.
In terms of their health. So you don't want them out there risking their health in the game. They have no chance of winning.
Yeah.
So I think maybe you sit them for that reason, right? Is that like, look, man, get healthy. We're not going to risk you like making an injury worse in a game like this.
Yeah.
It's a tough math for Scott Frost because you get paid to win games. And it's it'll feel like a forfeit. But look, does all this make us rethink UCF's chances in this one? I think we answered our own question, but again, we'll talk about that next on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in any action than on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You can even combine all your bets into a same game parlay for a chance at even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting. It's something I love to do, is the same game parlays. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just head over to FanDuel.com today, download the app, and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official betting partner of the NBA. Rethinking how I was thinking about this one. I wasn't giving UCF no chance on Monday when we recorded. I think I'm giving them no chance now that I've seen this injury report. What do you think here? Again, a lot of decisions that you got to make when you're the head coach. And we talked about it just a second ago. Do you risk the health of some of these guys who are kind of on the line in a game like this? Or do you sit them and try to get healthy for the end of the season, beat Oklahoma State, and see if you can give BYU a run for their money here and kind of treat this maybe like a bye week for these guys? You want to play to win. You want to play to win, or maybe use this game to develop some depth behind the guys who you are sitting, right? And get some other guys a lot of snaps that they haven't been able to get all year. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I know that if you come out even more injured from this one, then that was the wrong answer. So talk to me, man, about like, what do you think Scott Frost does here?
Yeah, I mean, I know what I would do, right? And I know what a lot of people in that position would do. Scott, here's my thing is that I think Scott really believes, and I think that as a coach you should, that every single game is winnable. And in college football, that's not far-fetched to say. But this team also has as many NFL players on its team as probably the Dolphins right now. I mean, that's like, it's like they have that level of talent. There is a ton of talent on this team. This is a typical, like what you would see out of UGA most years that they are good. Like, this is how good this football team is. They are high talent. They are highly paid, and they will go the distance. I think this Texas team, this Texas Tech, Red Raider squad is built for a college football playoff run. I don't see a reason that you go out there, you play all your best guys that have nagging injuries and that are injured coming in the game to go up against their hardest team all season, potentially the hardest team that they play for the next 2 to 3 years, Mike. I mean, this is a top 10 football team that they are about to go and play in Lubbock. Why do you risk it? Why do you risk your guys getting really banged up? You sit your guys and say, hey guys, for you guys that haven't gotten playing time this year, or for some rookies that we want to see how they do, let's put them up to the test. Let's put it, let's throw them in the deep end. Let's see how they do and get them some playing time. And against Oklahoma State, where you've got a better chance, you get back in the win column, and then you try and rally for a bowl game against a high-rated BYU. I think if your postseason is your goal, if you're trying to get to a postseason game, you don't play any of those guys on the questionable list. You don't play any of the guys on the doubtful list. Hell, I wouldn't even play any of the guys on the probable list if we have it.
Yeah, you want to compete. You want to compete, but you can't. You got to be fair to these guys. Now Miles, I don't think he had any eligibility left. So, like, he's a guy who might go play because he's like, I got to get some tape, right?
Yeah.
And that might be his thinking there. So, we'll see what, guys like him decide to do. But at the end of the day, I'm just thinking this was kind of the first season for hell for Scott Frost, right? Like, I mean, there was some promise at the beginning of the season with a lot of the guys that they brought in, and we saw some playmakers. But, maybe, again, glass half full is that you play some guys who haven't got time all year, and some playmakers emerge here at the end. Again, if you're just joining us, want to make sure before we get out of here, you guys see out is Cam Fancher, Caden Peating, Stacy Gage, Carter Miller, and Keegan Smith, 2 O-linemen and running back there out. Brayden Marshall, huge, doubtful. TJ Bullard, linebacker, doubtful. And then Nigel Kelly, Miles Montgomery, Jaden McDonald, and Malachi Lawrence is like a who's who of stars on this team, man. Like, in the questionable column. Probable, Thomas Wadsworth and Mason Denenberg. And two, we'll jump over to Texas Tech here. Hunter Zambrano, Roy Alexander, Leighton Stone, TJ West, Skylar Gil Howard out, Lee Hunter and Jacob Rodriguez questionable, and then also Will James, Stacy Sneed, and Carlos Alice Jr. Questionable and probable there. In the battle of the injury lists, Texas Tech wins. They win. If you're UCF, you've just got to find some way to make this not a complete disaster, I think. And this is the most negative I've been about any UCF game this year. I've been able to dig positivity out of the bowels of hell before this game. I cannot find it in this one. What was the spread? Was it 23.5 on this
23.5 it was the other day. It's still there, guys, take the points.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still sitting at 23.5, but certainly that might be a steal here. Hold on, let me just, I don't know how quickly they move them, but let me just see if the line has moved really quickly before we get out of here.
It is still 23.5.
What?
Via ESPN, and it's still 23.5.
Okay,
and here's the thing. Here's the thing that you might not consider as a UCF fan. Texas Tech might pull some of their guys here too, because they know it's going to be a blowout. They might want to save their team. I mean, Baron Morton on their injury report, I know he's listed as probable, but it could be a day that you say, hey man, let's play Baron for the first quarter, and then let's get him out. Put Will Hammond in the game, going up against a deflated defense. That could happen. You might see Lee Hunter for the first half of this game. Might see Jacob Rodriguez for the first half of this game. Those guys come out. You get other guys playing time. See how next year's going to go. I wouldn't put it past them to do that. I actually don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. I just think Saturday is going to be brutal to watch. I think most people are going to turn it off at halftime. And if it's not, and it's close, then it's going to be even worse because the Knights are going to do what the Knights do, and they grab defeat from the jaws of victory.
Oh, I hate that saying.
So
Good God. Well,
it's that's the way.
Either way, we'll be here in the post game to talk about it. James Duncan, UCF sports commentator. I want to thank you for joining me on today's show to talk a little UCF football. Before we get out of here, 80 Bo Oxley says this is not going to be a watchable game. You guys joining the doom and gloom here with us. Kathy Wallace says stay out for this game so we have a chance in the next two. This game is a loss and it's expected. And then our guy Ryan Saz says you're questionable and probable players for tech. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. The graphic didn't update there, so we got some of them though. Anyway, let's go on and get out of here. We appreciate everybody for joining the show. Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every single day. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF.